Mark, thanks very much. I'm joined by Senator Judd Gregg, the Republican of New Hampshire. He is one of the conferees for this financial regulatory overhaul, one of those conferees who doesn't agree with everything that's in the underlying bill, the proposals on the table. Right. First of all, thanks for the time.
Appreciate you having me on.
As you begin this process later today with your Democratic counterparts, do you see any opportunity for Republicans to actually stand in the way and block this thing?
No.
What about substantive changes to this bill? What's first on your list?
Well, first on my list would be getting it right relative to creating jobs and credit in this country and making sure that we address the issue of long-term safety and soundness of our system. And I don't think we do that in this bill. I think this bill does not get to the fundamental issues of how we make the system safer and sounder, and we avoid a systemic breakdown because it doesn't address two of the key factors, Freddie and Fannie and underwriting standards. And secondly, it is going to contract credit in this country dramatically, I think. But in any event, it's going to contract credit a lot in this country. And as a result, you're going to see fewer jobs created because credit is what creates jobs. Entrepreneurs go out, take risk, and the way they do that is by having credit behind them.
You've had particular problems with the derivatives language in this bill. Senator Blanche Lincoln's proposal here that would require banks to spin off their swaps, their derivative trading units altogether.
Right.
She just won her primary. The conventional wisdom is here. There's no chance Democrats will take that out because she's still running for office.
Well, if they don't, we're going to get a bill that really is counterproductive to getting a stronger derivatives market. The derivatives language in this bill, the Senate underlying bill, has some very serious flaws. It has flaws in the end user area of exemptions, it has flaws as to the way it deals with clearinghouses and exchanges, and it has this major flaw of forcing out the swap tests, which will inevitably cause massive contraction in credit availability to companies in America that create jobs and make us competitive as a country. And so it's a real mistake, in my opinion. Now, the House bill is stronger in all those areas, and I'm sort of hoping for Barney Frank to come in and be the cavalry on this one.
Have you had any opportunity to talk to Chairman Frank, to your Democratic colleagues? Do you think they will step forward and make these changes? Because some of them privately have expressed some of the same reservations.
Well, you know, they don't know. Not only do they express this, the FDIC says it's bad policy, the Fed says it's bad policy, the Treasury will whisper to you that it's bad policy, and a lot of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle here in the Senate will say, oh, you really don't like that idea. But it hasn't left. It just stays around.
What about the Volcker rule? Again, both the Senate and House proposals here approach this a little bit differently.
Well, I don't know where the Volcker rule ends up, and in the end, I don't think this bill is going to be definitive on the Volcker rule. I think that's going to be left to regulatory agencies, and there's going to be a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace for a fairly long period of time, which is again going to chill the marketplace, especially in the area of formation of credit.
Do you think proprietary trading, should it be banned?
Well, I don't think you should be able to use insured assets to take risk, but going from the general concept from 30,000 feet down to specifics gets very difficult. And I believe we should leave that decision to the regulators, but as a very practical matter, in doing that, there's obviously going to be lead-up time, should be lead-up time to the final decisions, and that's a time of uncertainty. And here we are in an economic downturn. We're going to compound that downturn, or our capacity to recover, if we chill credit activity, but it appears that's what's going to happen.
Capital standards, one of your Republican colleagues on the Senate side, Senator Susan Collins, she introduced an amendment that would basically raise capital standards for all banks, particularly large ones. And what is your take on that? She's indicated that she might be prepared to scale that back as well over some reservations.
Well, I would certainly hope so, because it's not practical. A proposal that, again, is not a practical proposal. We do need better capital standards. And clearly, the larger you are, probably the more capital you should be required to maintain, and that would be a responsibility of the Federal Reserve to force you to keep that type of capital. But to just arbitrarily say the trust preferred stock is not going to be counted as capital is going to create huge stress, especially on moderate-sized banks who can't replace that capital quickly, and it's also going to put our banks at a disadvantage in the international issue of how capital is going to be structured coming out of these negotiations with the G20. So it's really not. It's a classic example of the Congress trying to address an issue with some sort of an across-the-board sweeping regulation piece of law, which should have been done by regulation.
All right, Senator Judd Gregg, you need to get to that conference. Thanks very much. Mark, we'll send it back to you in New York.